What's up, everybody? I'm John Middlekauff. You know what I need you to do. Subscribe to our YouTube channel. We got content for days reacting to every NFL game all the time, every single day. Subscribe, like the videos. Let's go. Play a little overrated and underrated. Because there's a lot going on in the NFL I want to talk about. This one hurts. But it's just the truth. The 49ers are very, very overrated. What a disaster. I mean, at now they're just properly rated. They're 5-5 and just not a playoff team. And they're dead last in the NFC West. Dead last. They've lost to all three teams in the NFC West. All three teams. Pretty sure last year when they were the number one seed and went to the Super Bowl, I guess they lost one game. They went 5-1 in the division, but it was week 18 when they rested all their starters. But they dominated the division. And now they've lost to the Cardinals. They've lost to the Rams. And they lost one of the worst games you'll ever see today. Geno Smith, who they had owned coming into today, drove right down the field for a touchdown. George Kittle didn't play. He's got some injury, I guess. Hurt his hamstring. Kind of random at the end of the week. Nick Bosa hurt his other hip. And, Deebo Samuel looks kind of average. So they got problems. But they're not going to the playoffs this year. It's just not their year. I mean, they look – I don't even know how to put it. I mean, because the most underrated part is the NFC West, who now does not have a team under 500. The Cardinals, who are going to be coming off a bye, just look pretty good. If the Rams score touchdowns, their defense is good. They're going to be a problem. And Seattle, like, if you just get a solid Geno, is a tough out. And the 49ers are looking at now playing the Packers and the Bills in their next two games. Like, there's a very decent chance, I would say best case scenario, they're 6-6. Very decent chance that they are 5-7. And Brock Purdy's had a good year. He's a good player. I like him a lot. But, like, can everyone just take a deep breath? Like, do you have to just give him $200 million? Couldn't you just play out next season as well and keep trying to load up the team for another year and just see, like, okay, if he's incredible, we'll give you $225 million. I don't mind paying an extra 10, 12% if I know for sure. Like, obviously they feel really good about him, but I'm just not – I'm never in a huge rush to pay people. And I think one thing the 49ers have to really regret is not trading Brandon Ayuk before the playoffs. I think if they could do it all, or excuse me, before the draft. I think if they could do it all over again, Brandon Ayuk would be on another team. Because Juwan Jennings has really established himself. They ended up drafting Ricky Pearsall now that, Christian McCaffrey's back and, Kittle up until he hurt his hamstring sometime this week, I guess, was having one of the better seasons of his career. But I just, you can't allocate that much money and that many resources to the wide receiver position when the guy producing the most is your lowest paid wide receiver. Like, Juwan Jennings had a contract extension this offseason. The other thing about the NFC West, and this is why it's an underrated division, is the coaching's really good. Like, Mike McDonald was one of the best defensive coordinators we've seen over the last, decade. What he did in Baltimore was incredible. Like, that guy's a badass coach. Sean McVay is obviously a stud. Kyle Shanahan, who is getting just absolutely lit on fire on the internet in 49er land, is obviously pretty good. He's gone to 4 of the last 5 conference championship games and gone to 2 Super Bowls where he had the lead in the second half against the Chiefs. And I think Jonathan Gannon I think he's a good coach. And I think he did a good job hiring a staff. He has 2 coordinators, a couple millennials who are kicking ass and taking names. His bald offensive coordinator, Pezic, is good. Rallis, his defensive coordinator, is, I think, the youngest coordinator in the NFL. They're like 32 or 31 or 33, somewhere in that range. I think he's 32. Obviously is doing one of the better jobs in the league. Besides Budda Baker, like, how many impact defensive players did the Arizona Cardinals have? And I don't know if the 49ers, it's fatigue, if it's running out of gas, if it's just Sometimes it's not your year. And listen, some teams would sell their left testicle to have a year from hell and be 5-5. What would Brian Daboll or the Titans or just go around the league do to be 5-5? So these are good problems to have, but when you set the bar really high and you have a season like this, it sucks. And speaking of overrated, I never understood why. And listen, I thought they would be improved, but I thought their record would be about the same as last year. Rookie quarterbacks, when you don't have a good coach, you're not just going to win 10 games, especially in a really, really good division. So the Bears, who are now 4-6, have a lot of issues. And their quarterback finally played a good game. But like, people were picking them to make the playoffs. Matt Eberflus was not making the playoffs in a division with Dan Campbell, LaFleur, and Kevin O'Connell. He's not the worst coach in that division. He's the worst coach in that division by the width of the Grand Canyon from California to Texas. Like that gap is so wide, you could fit a lot in between. And even if they've upgraded now with Thomas Brown by firing the offensive coordinator, like you just don't overcome that poor of a head coach. You really do not. And listen, like a lot of teams, we should have won that game, but you didn't. And for some reason, with Matt Eberflus, you never win that game, even when should have won the game. And the most underrated part about the NFC North is how good their top three records are right now. They are currently the Lions, the Packers, and the Lions, the Packers. Sorry, it's late. And the Lions, the Packers, and the Minnesota Vikings. The Lions are 9-1. The Vikings are 8-2, and the Packers are 7-3. Like these, I mean that division is really freaking good, and it's crazy with Minnesota because you're watching Sam Darnold, who's definitely come back to earth, but like they're gonna win 11 games. Like this team, those teams are playoff locks. I mean, the Lions, what they're doing right now, they have scored 52 points in an NFL game twice in a month. I know it's been against two really, really bad teams, the Titans and the Jags. But how often do you see good teams play really, really bottom feeders, bad teams, just shitty operations, and win like 30-10 or 38-17? Like, this is not college football. And to have back-to-back blowouts, I mean, I know last week I'm not saying like back-to-back games, but I'm just saying have two blowouts of 52 points. That's insane. It really is. The Lions feel a little bit like the Ravens last year, where when they would just get someone, they would suffocate them. And you'd be like, it crossed my mind today at halftime because I had that game. The main box on my big TV was the Red Zone on one box, the Steeler Ravens on another box, Bears Packers on another box, and then Lions Jags. When they scored their 28th point, I think to make it 28-6 before I think there were still like 3 or 4 minutes to go in the first half, I contemplated like, would you pull your starters right now? Now he ended up not pulling his starters till like, I don't know, midway or early on in the fourth. He could have justified doing it pretty early in the third quarter. Now it's football, it's hard. It's not like you can pull, this isn't basketball. I can't pull my whole 5 guys off and put a brand new 5 guys. You don't even have 5 offensive linemen in pads. It's hard with wide receivers. Even defensive linemen need to rotate. You just can't put your backup guys. Like, even though those guys aren't starters, you still play them a lot. It's not it's easier said than done. But that had to cross his mind early on. Like, can we just get out of here? And they ended up, I think Anzalone broke his arm. So he's out for 6 to 8 weeks. Again, that's a freak play. There's nothing you can do about it. But I think sometimes you get uncomfortable in those games because you're like, I just do not want to get Jahmyr Gibbs or St. Brown or Penei Sewell or Brian Branch injured when we're up 45-6 in the third quarter. Can I tell you about my new friends? No Days Wasted. The holiday season, means going to parties, hanging out with the boys, having a few cocktails, watching the game, picking it with some old friends. So be ready to celebrate and bounce back the next day with DHM Detox, the ultimate vitamin for when drinking. It's a science-backed, functional herbal supplement loaded with antioxidants and liver-supporting ingredients. You just take these 2 capsules right after a few drinks. And DHM Detox gets to work so you can wake up feeling fresh for kickoff. No Days Wasted is running the biggest sale of the year for Black Friday. Get 30% off all orders this week. Stock up now for the holiday season and your next game day celebration. The Detox supports your body's natural response to drinking by helping break down the toxins so you don't feel sluggish the next day. How awesome is that? Don't love it? No Days Wasted offers a full refund on your first order of a 15-pack. No questions asked. Don't waste time feeling sluggish after a night out. It's a completely risk-free purchase. Feel great or your money back on your first order. Head over to nodayswasted.com/3andout and use code 3andout. That's number 3, ANDOUT, to get 30% off your order. That's nodayswasted/3andout for 30% off and free shipping. Overrated. I at this point in time, like, to go back to the narratives early in the season about the Jets is pretty pointless. I do think it's fair. Their defense was heralded last season as just one of the best units in the league. And really, we've talked about them for a couple years that way. They have one of the best defenses in the league. And then last offseason, they lost a bunch of players, right? One of their best pass rushers, Bryce Huff, signed with the Eagles. Guy had double-digit sacks last year. Sauce Gardner has had a bad season. He screwed up at the end of the game, and he's constantly pointing when someone screws up, try to claim it's not his fault. And they gave up multiple drives to Anthony Richardson, who just had a couple weeks ago one of the most embarrassing moments, I would say, in like the history of the league when it comes to just a quarterback doing something on the field. Guy tapped out of a game. Every single, like, we have seen, there's not an interception we haven't seen. Hell, we've seen people run out of the back of the end zone. We have never, ever seen a starting quarterback in the middle of the game on a third down tap his helmet and leave the game. And it was universally responded to that way by former players. There wasn't one, you cannot find a situation, I would say, in society, let alone sports, where 100% of the people are on the same side of the ledger. And that's how it was with that. And then 2 weeks later, this guy comes back and leads multiple fourth quarter drives. And both drives, one drive was under 2 minutes. The other drive was under 3 minutes. And they had a game-winning drive. The one, I think, that was under 2 minutes was to win the game. The pass was on Sauce Gardner's side. Now, I get it was too deep, and he's got the underneath, but it's like he didn't even touch him. He just let him go right by. He didn't even reroute the wide receiver. Then he immediately starts pointing. I don't know, man. Obviously, Rodgers looks really, really old. The offense finally put up some points. Anthony Richardson even had a fumble on like a delayed blitz that gave them a touchdown. I mean, they were up 24-16 in this game, in the second half. 24-16. This is one of my favorite bets of the NFL season. Colts +4. When it was 24-16, I didn't feel great because I didn't totally trust Anthony Richardson. But the reason I love that bet, the reason, honestly, it was like one of my bigger bets of the year. Because I don't believe in the Jets. And they proved me right again. What a disastrous, and I mean epic train wreck of a season from the New York Jets. I think the Steelers' run game's a little underrated. I don't know what their final stats were today, but I've always been somewhat critical. Critical would be the wrong way to put it. Just hesitant on Najee Harris. And I followed his career since high school. But I just watched him in the pros. Never really liked his game that much. I don't know if it's health. I don't know if it's confidence. His numbers don't totally reflect it today. He had 18 carries for 63 yards. But I think this is by far the best season of his career. With his overall confidence running, his just ability to make a guy miss, run through a guy, physicality in his runs. Obviously, the Ravens are one of the best run defenses in the league. But one reason I believe a little bit in the Steelers, They can win a playoff game. Hell, they could win a couple because they are very, very comfortable playing in these low scoring games is because of Najee Harris and Jalen Warren. I think the quarterback play underrated in the New England Patriot Los Angeles Rams game. Drake Maye, if I was a Patriot fan, I would be very, very excited. The best case scenario when you have a project rookie is for him to show a bunch of stuff of like positive, film and games and lose. It couldn't be going any better right now if you're a Patriot fan. Because obviously, what the hell's the difference of winning, going 7-10 or 3-14? And the Patriots are not going to win many more games, yet their quarterback gets better every week. Matt Stafford today had a stretch where he had 4 touchdowns in a 9 completion stretch. It's why I said there are 5 quarterbacks in the prime of their career who are just, got a chance to go down as like all-time greats. Stafford is the only other quarterback in this league, especially of an older one, who can play at their level. And he's just dramatically older than all of them. But, the Rams are just, every time you want to just write the Rams off, now it's the Patriots, but if their offense can score, they should be tough because their defense is really good. What else do I want to hit on? A couple other things before I get out of here. Just one thing that is just extremely overrated. And I just believe this in general. I know Notre Dame fans are celebrating on the grave of Brian Kelly's career. You guys play nobody. Notre Dame, because they don't have a conference, their schedule is a joke. And every time I look up and they're playing the Sisters of the Poor, or the School of the Blind, and beating the living piss out of them, it's like, great. Join the Big Ten or the SEC, and then I would respect if you went 10-2 and 11-1. But these makeshift schedules you're playing, where the most of these teams that you play just suck and will never ever make a 12-team playoff. Like I'm not giving you credit for being like, see, this is where you want to coach. Because Brian Kelly went to LSU. And if Notre Dame played in the SEC, they would never sniff the playoffs. I'll promise you that. Because they could not go 10-2 in the SEC. Now, that being said, hiring Brian Kelly might have been the best they could do. Obviously, he's a successful coach. I'm not acting like what he did at Notre Dame wasn't impressive, or Notre Dame winning games isn't a good thing. But I hate it when like Notre Dame goes 11-1, they start pumping out their chests. Like, give me a break. Play some real teams. Like, get ready to go one and done come the playoffs, because that's what's going to happen. But Brian Kelly this year has been a disaster. And watching them lose to Florida and get shoved around, and Garrett Nussmeier's falling apart these last couple of weeks, and the defense, every time it's playing well, all of a sudden the offense goes the wrong way, and then every time the offense is playing well, the defense sucks, and then when they're both kind of working, the special teams falls apart. They gave him $90 million because Ed Ogeron was a train wreck. That program was a disaster. And Brian Kelly was known for being like the CEO buttoned up. Like, he might never have a national championship ceiling, but he was going to have a really high floor. And if you would have told him when he took the job 3 years ago, there's going to be a 12-team playoff, hey, no problem. We'll make that thing a lot. Best case scenario, now they're going to go 8-4. That means back-to-back years they've gone 9-3 and 8-4. I just got news for you. That's just unacceptable. It's just not going to fly. And I think sometimes takes in college football can be a little aggressive. It just happens with coaches in general. Hell, I see it happen with the 49ers. Like, fire Shanahan. For who? Ben Johnson? You know what Ben Johnson? Ben Johnson will go to church every day of the week and pray 10 times a day that he's 75% as good as a head coach. One day, not even like early on, as Kyle Shanahan. So you have no clue. But 3 coaches, the last 3 LSU coaches, Nick Saban, Les Miles, and Ed Ogeron, have all won national championships. So it's basically guaranteed if you're the head coach at LSU, you're going to have the opportunity to win a national championship because there's nobody you can't get into school. And the recruiting in your own backyard is as good as it gets. And the history at your program makes it really to just recruit in general in the South outside of Louisiana. to get worse from last year after just a couple weeks ago, it felt like, God, this feels like a playoff team. What a disaster. And I think the most underrated job by a mile in college football, Deion Sanders and the Colorado Buffaloes control their own destiny. If they win the next 2 weeks, they're in the conference championship game. And if they win that game, they will be a top 4 seed in the college football playoff. We knew they were really good on offense. Shador is probably going to be the number 1 overall pick. Travis Hunter might be the number 2. There's a decent chance. Cam Ward, is he going to go to? I don't know. You could argue there's a 50-50 chance right now the top 2 picks in the NFL draft are on Colorado. But those guys were high level, prospects last year. Travis Hunter would have gone in the top 5 if he was eligible to come out last season. Shador would have gone in the first round if he was eligible to come out last season. Defensively, they were a joke. Last year, it was like, what is going on here? This offseason, they hired Warren Sapp, which is a cool headline. But as this season has gone, if you've watched them play, and I've watched them a lot because I bet on them basically every week, their defensive line is in the backfield all the time. Last year, their defensive linemen looked like me. It's like, how are you playing Division I football with these guys on the line of scrimmage? And then their secondary, outside of Travis Hunter, are making plays nonstop. Their defense is really good. They are easily, and listen, the Big 12 is not the Big 10 or the SEC. It's a 1-bid playoff league. And to me, today, as we sit here going in the last couple weeks of the season, they are clearly the best team in the conference. Clearly. So props to Deion Sanders, Shador, and Travis Hunter for, resurrecting a program that a couple years ago had 1 win. And now they look poised. I mean, it's all in front of them to get to 11 in 3 weeks.